for the second day of the Cost of Service Phase 2 hearing in Utah Public Service Commission Docket 2035-4, Rocky Mountain Power's general rate case. I'm Thad LeVar, and Commissioners Ron Allen and David Clark are also here. Before we move on to our next witness, I'll just mention we received a request for clarification regarding our notice on closing statements or legal briefing and closing arguments. It was, of course, a typographical error in our notice. We did not intend to require witnesses to be present at the closing arguments, and we will issue an errata this week, although we do appreciate Rocky Mountain Power educating us on how closing statements work. And with that, I'll go to Ms. Hayes, if you'd like to call your first witness.
Thank you. Quickly before I do that, could I follow up with another question about what you just clarified?
Certainly.
Is it your intention that all parties provide closing statements or just parties that are filing briefs?
The intention for both was to allow but not mandate for both briefs and closing statements. If that was unclear in our notice, we will also clarify that in our errata. But both were intended to be optional. Okay. Although I think we probably would only allow closing statements if someone also filed a brief. I don't know that we were intending to allow closing statements without a brief. If anyone feels differently, please let us know by the conclusion of today's hearing so we can be sure to address that in our errata clarification. And with that, you can go ahead with your first witness.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that, and thank you for accommodating Western Resource Advocates' scheduling constraints. I would like to call Mr. Aaron Kressig to be sworn.
Good morning, Mr. Kressig. Are you with us?
Good morning, Commissioner. Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Hayes.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Kressig. Just a note up front, if you can really try and speak into your microphone. I know that, concentrating on that amidst everything else is difficult, but I'll let you know if we have trouble hearing you.
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Would you please state your name and business address for the record?
Yes, my name is Aaron Kressig, spelled A-A-R-O-N, Kressig, K-R-E-S-S. IG, and my business address is 2260 Baseline Road, Boulder, Colorado, 80302.
Thank you. What is your position with Western Resource Advocates?
I am the Transportation Electrification Manager working on electric vehicle policy across our 6 states.
Did you prepare and file direct testimony along with 2 exhibits marked as AJK1 and AJK2 and a work paper on September 15th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
Did you prepare and file surrebuttal testimony on November 6th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to make to your testimony?
No, I do not.
If I asked you the same questions today as were set forth in your direct and surrebuttal testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Thank you. I would now move the admission of Aaron Kressig's pre-filed testimony and exhibits.
If anyone objects to that motion, please indicate your objection. I'm not seeing or hearing any, so the motion is granted. Thank you.
Have you prepared a summary of your testimony for the commission?
Yes, I have.
Please proceed.
Thank you.
In my direct testimony, I describe the environmental and economic benefits which can result from widespread electric vehicle adoption and highlight the demonstrated interest of the Utah legislature in supporting the robust rollout of public charging stations to support EV adoption. My direct testimony highlights the importance of commercial EV rate design in supporting the proliferation of public and fleet charging stations, the challenges traditional commercial rate design can pose for these customers, and the importance of low load factor charging stations in supporting higher levels of EV adoption. With these issues in mind, I looked at the impact of the current and proposed Option Schedule 6A rates in the context of their suitability for commercial electric vehicle charging stations. I recommend the Commission approve the redesigned 6A, but also keep the existing 6A option open for customers. I also discussed the benefits and best practices of dedicated commercial electric vehicle rates and recommend the Commission require Pacific Corp to bring forth a specific commercial EV rate design by no later than January 1st, 2023. In my rebuttal testimony, I maintained my recommendation to keep both 6A rate options open, but in recognition of potential revenue risk highlighted by the company in the rebuttal testimony of Mr. Robert Meredith, I suggest that the new 6A could be implemented as a pilot while the company gathers data about customer response to this rate design. Ultimately, however, my core recommendation in this proceeding is for the Commission to create a rate specific for electric vehicle charging stations. Rates specifically dedicated to electric vehicle charging service have been demonstrated across the country to reduce barriers to electric vehicle adoption while still being cost-based and ensuring that these users are being charged for the price of energy that they are consuming. While allowing for the proposed 6A and the existing 6A to exist together would provide optionality in the short term and offer some cost savings compared to Schedule 6, neither of these rate designs shift sufficiently away from demand charges or meet the best practices of commercial EV rate design, which I lay out in my direct testimony. This leads to rates which penalize low usage customers while not necessarily ensuring that the flexibility inherent in this technology is being utilized to ensure that load is managed to avoid company system peaks or periods of system stress. Therefore, I maintain my recommendation that the company develops an EV charging specific rate by January 1st, 2023. And I believe that the rate design working group proposed by Mr. Robert Meredith in his rebuttal testimony would be an excellent forum for facilitating this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kressig is now available for cross-examination.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. I think I'll start with Mr. Sanger. Do you have any questions for Mr. Kressig?
No, Your Honor, I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Bayham, do you have any questions?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Baldwin.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Russell, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holman.
No questions. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Schnarr.
No questions on behalf of the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jetter.
No questions from the division. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wagner or Mr. Tamar?
The company. Thank you.
I missed the beginning, but I assume that was a no questions, right? Okay, thank you. Commissioner, do you have any questions for Mr. Kressig?
I think you were talking to me. You were breaking up a little bit, but I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are having a little bit of interference. Hopefully that will improve in a moment. I'll ask anyone who's not participating to mute yourself. Commissioner Clark, do you have any questions for Mr. Kressig?
No questions. Thank you, Chair LeVar.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have any questions either. So thank you for your testimony this morning, Mr. Kressig.
Thank you for having me.
Ms. Hayes, we had talked about going to Kroger's witness next, but I think with the schedule we're working on, I think we'll go ahead and go to your next witness at this point.
Wonderful. And then may I also request that Mr. Kressig be excused so that he may testify in Colorado under their revised schedule?
If anyone participating in this hearing has any objection to that, please indicate your objection. I'm not seeing anyone who might have follow-up questions for him, so thank you for your testimony this morning.
WRA's next witness is Dr. Doug Howell.
Good morning, Dr. Howell. Are you with us?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Hayes.
Dr. Howell, will you please state your name and business address for the record?
Douglas Howe, DOUGLASHOWE, and my address is 624 East Alameda Street, Unit 16, Santa Fe, New Mexico.
And on whose behalf are you participating in this proceeding?
For Western Resource Associates.
Advocates. Excuse me. Did you prepare and file direct testimony along with one exhibit marked as DJH1 and work papers on September 15th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
And was there another exhibit to your direct testimony, DJH2, that was filed with the commission on November 12th, which the commission then accepted for pre-filing yesterday?
Yes, there was.
Did you prepare and file surrebuttal testimony on October 16th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
Did you prepare and file surrebuttal testimony, including one exhibit on November 6th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to your testimony?
Yes, I have a typographical correction to the rebuttal testimony. The heading block in the upper right of each page indicates that it is the direct testimony when it should indicate that it is the rebuttal testimony.
Thank you. So with that correction, if I asked you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
I would now, pardon me, move the admission of Dr. Howe's exhibits, testimony and exhibits.
Thank you. If anyone objects to that motion, please indicate your objection. I'm not seeing or hearing any, so the motion is granted.
Dr. Howe, have you prepared a summary of your testimony to provide the commission today?
Yes, I have.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman LeVar, Commissioner Allen, and Commissioner Clark. In my direct testimony, I supported the company's proposal to eliminate the third tier of the inclining block rate as a step in the direction toward deploying time of use rates. My primary recommendation was that the commission require the company to develop and propose a time of use rate as the default rate for residential customers and establish a flat seasonal rate as an opt-in rate at the time of its next general rate case. However, in recognition of the fact that the AMI project and the customer service system may not be able to accommodate time of use rates by the time of the next rate case, I recommend that the company have a plan in place by the next rate case for implementing a default time of use rate for residential customers. In my direct testimony, I also outlined considerations and best practices for designing time of use rates. In my rebuttal testimony, I generally supported the goals of the company's Utah AMI project, but agreed with Mr. Nelson of the office that they have not yet shown a cost-benefit analysis favorable to customers. I recommended that the company expand its consideration of benefits associated with the project by, for example, quantifying the benefits of advanced rate designs. I supported OCS's recommendation to create an advanced rate design roadmap. And in my surrebuttal testimony, I supported the company's recommendation to create a rate design working group to accomplish the objectives of OCS's proposed advanced metering rate design roadmap. I recommended that the commission include additional specific topics into the mission and purview of that working group, including developing a timeline and implementation strategy, developing advanced rates and programs, considerations for low-income participation, developing open data access standards, and integrating AMI advancements into distribution planning processes. That concludes my summary.
Thank you, Dr. Howe. Dr. Howe is now available for cross-examination.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Sanger, do you have any questions for Dr. Howe?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boehm. Do you have any?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Baldwin?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Russell, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holman.
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Schnarr?
No questions on behalf of the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jetter.
And also no questions from the division. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wagner or Mr. Kamar?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear what you said.
Thank you.
Okay, we are having an audio problem, but I'm assuming that your answer was no questions. Please let me know if I'm wrong about that.
Yes, my answer was no questions. Can you hear it better when it's from the phone instead of my AirPods?
Much better. Yeah, there was a delay,
Okay.
and we were just catching the last part of your statement, not the beginning. So
Perfect.
But
Thank
this
you.
is better. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Allen, do you have any questions for Dr. Howe?
Thank you. No questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark.
I have no questions. Thank you.
I don't either. So thank you for your testimony this morning, Dr. Howe.
Thank you.
Ms. Hayes, anything further from Western Resource Advocates?
Nothing further from Western Resource Advocates. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Boehm next then. And you are muted right now, Mr. Boehm.
Thank you, sorry about that. And thank you for accommodating our scheduling issue. Kroger calls Richard Baudino to the stand.
Good morning, Mr. Baudino. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we're hearing you great. Do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Boehm.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Baudino.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name and business address for the record?
Yes, my name is Richard A. Baudino, and my business address is Baudino Regulatory Consulting, Inc., 1347 Fry Road, Westfield, North Carolina.
And did you submit testimony on behalf of the Kroger Company, direct testimony and exhibits on September 15th, 2020?
I did.
And I would just note for the record that Kroger submitted a corrected version of this testimony yesterday, in which the only change that we made was to add page or line numbering to Mr. Baudino's direct testimony, as we'd overlooked doing that in the original filing. Mr. Baudino, did you also submit rebuttal testimony on October 16th, 2020?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, I did.
And did you submit surrebuttal testimony on November 6th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any corrections to any of the testimony that you filed?
I do not.
And if I asked you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Kroger moves for the admission of Mr. Baudino's pre-filed testimony and exhibits.
Thank you. If anyone objects to that motion, please state your objection. I'm not seeing or hearing any objections, so the motion is granted.
Mr. Baudino, have you prepared a summary of your testimony?
Yes, I have.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, everyone. I'm here today testifying on behalf of the Kroger Company. And Kroger is one of the largest grocery retailers in the United States and operates 42 grocery stores in Rocky Mountain Power's service territory under the Smith's banner. Kroger also operates dairy and dough manufacturing facilities in Utah. Altogether, these facilities purchase more than 146 million kilowatt hours of electricity from Rocky Mountain Power annually. And the retail facilities primarily purchasing under Rate Schedule 6, and the manufacturing facilities under Rate Schedule 9. And the purpose of my testimony in this case is to present revenue allocation and Schedule 6 rate design recommendations to the Commission. And in so doing, as part of that, I evaluated the file testimony of Mr. Robert Meredith, witness for the company. To To summarize, my recommendations in general are as follows. I recommend the Commission move to address the long-standing problem of subsidies being paid by Schedule 6 customers. The subsidy being paid by Schedule 6 customers is over $38 million a year at the company's present rates. In the interest of gradualism, however, and reducing the impact on the residential customers, Kroger does not oppose the company's proposed revenue allocation in this case, even though the Schedule 6 composite customers, and these are the customers who are going to be remaining on Schedule 6 after the 6A rate redesign, those customers will be receiving a higher than system average increase under the company's original proposal, although that's been modified somewhat in its rebuttal testimony. So in connection with this recommendation, I recommend the Commission utilize any authorized reductions in the company's overall revenue increase request to address the subsidy problem for Schedule 6 composite customers. And this could be accomplished by reducing the Schedule 6 composite percentage revenue increase below the lower authorized overall percentage revenue increase that the Commission may authorize in this case. I presented an example of how this could work in my direct testimony, with the Commission applying a 50% reduction in its overall allowed percentage-based revenue increase to Schedule 6 composite customers remaining on Schedule 6. So, for example, if the Commission allowed an overall increase of 2.4% to Rocky Mountain Power in this case, these Schedule 6 customers remaining on Schedule 6 would receive an increase of 1.2%. Now, in terms of rate design, any revenue increase allocated to Schedule 6 composite customers should be assigned to the demand and other fixed charges that the customer charges. The energy charge revenue or the rates should not be increased. And I do agree with the company's proposed differential for the energy charges, the summer-winter energy charges of 1.13. I do agree with that. But I do recommend the current differential between summer and winter demand charges remains the same. Also, in my direct testimony, I recommended the Commission require Rocky Mountain to file a multi-site commercial rate for eligible Schedule 6 customers in its next rate case. This rate would be applicable to Schedule 6 customers who can aggregate the loads of multiple facilities for purposes of receiving a lower cost-based fixed generation charge. I showed and discussed in my testimony that such a rate has been approved in Arizona, Michigan, and Washington. I further recommend that a collaborative be implemented between Rocky Mountain Power and interested Schedule 6 customers. I believe that in his testimony, Mr. Meredith also recommended that a collaborative working group be implemented after this case, and I would support that. I also submitted in my rebuttal testimony in this proceeding testimony that was responsive to the recommendations of other parties regarding cost of service allocation methodologies. For purposes of this case, however, I've accepted the company's class cost of service study as a guide to cost and revenue allocation. And in my rebuttal testimony, I responded to Mr. Meredith's rebuttal testimony regarding the revenue allocation to Schedule 6 customers, and in particular to Schedule 6 composite customers who remain on Schedule 6. I noted that Mr. Meredith's revised revenue allocation, while more favorable to Schedule 6, still did not adequately address the impacts on Schedule 6 composite customers, and I offered an alternative revenue allocation method for the Commission to consider, which would make greater progress towards eliminating the significant subsidies being paid by Schedule 6. And that concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Baudino. Mr. Baudino is available for cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Boehm. I'll go to Ms. Baldwin first. Do you have any questions for Mr. Baudino?
No, Walmart has no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Mr. Russell. Any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seeger, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holman.
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Hayes, do you have any questions for this witness?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Snar?
Yes, just a few questions, if I might.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Badino.
Good morning.
I have just a few questions. You did indicate that you undertook a review of the cost of service study that the company had submitted. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you indicated that for purposes of your testimony, you were relying upon that study. Is that right?
That's right.
You understand that some questions have been raised about that study by other parties in this proceeding. To what extent did you look at some of the issues underlying the cost of service study?
Well, I did review the company's cost of service study in detail as it was filed in Mr. Meredith's direct testimony, and seemed to follow the general procedures the company has followed in the past with respect to, especially with respect to allocating generation costs. After really looking at that study, I felt it was, even though I don't endorse it necessarily, I think it was close enough to past commission practice and past company practice that I was willing to accept it. I also did review some of the other comments that the other witnesses for the other parties made, and also looked at Mr. Meredith's rebuttal and surrebuttal testimony where he discussed those as well. And I think for purposes of this case, I still would accept the company's or not challenge the company's cost of service method.
All right, just a couple of follow-on questions there. Can you confirm that functionalization, including sub-functionalization, is traditionally carried out as the first step of a cost of service study?
Yes.
And that following that, classification is traditionally the second step?
Yes.
And allocation the third step?
That's right.
All right. You also looked at Mr. Meredith's testimony. Do you recall him making a statement that he was making one change to the company's cost of service study, that being unbundling?
Yes, I recall that.
And did you review his testimony to determine to what extent that effort at unbundling had altered the cost of service study?
I didn't see that it significantly altered the results. It was more just sort of functional unbundling and moving towards more unbundling for rate purposes anyway. That's how I understand it.
All right. Let me move to one other thing. You've indicated in your testimony, particularly at page 7, that you say that Schedule 6 is paying the largest dollar subsidy compared to any other class. Is that correct?
Which page is this?
Page 7, I believe, in your table.
Well, yes, that's true.
And at page 11 of your direct testimony, you propose that Schedule 6 customers should pay a lower percentage increase than other classes, right?
That's right.
And that would be even lower than Schedule 23 and lighting, who've shown better results in covering their costs than previously assigned to those classes. Is that right?
Well, now could you sort of show me where that is?
I believe it's on page 11. Let me just rephrase the question. Would you accept, subject to check, that Schedule 23 and lighting have shown better results in covering the costs that have previously been assigned to those classes?
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. I'd like you to point me towards the numbers there that you're referring to, because I do have, excuse me, I do have work papers here and I can refer to the numbers.
Let me look at that just a minute, please. I'd like to beg the Commission's indulgence for just a minute, please. Let me just refer you back to your table 1 on page 7.
Okay.
Looking at the classes of street and area lighting on that table, and also the outdoor lighting, would you agree that those particular schedules are covering a lot of the costs, are being subsidized to a great extent?
Well, now you're talking about street and area lighting. This would be schedules 7, 11, and 12.
Yes.
Well, they're an even higher. Certainly, their relative rate of return is even higher under the company study than Schedule 6 is. So, they're paying significant subsidies as well.
All right. I just wanted to let you look at that and opine on those schedules with us. I have no other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Schnarr. Mr. Jetter, do you have any questions for Mr. Badino?
No questions from the division. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wegener or Mr. Kumar?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank Mr. Boehm, do you have any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clark, do you have any questions for Mr. Badino?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Allen, do you?
Also, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and I don't have anything else. So thank you for your testimony this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Boehm, anything else from Kroger?
No, that concludes our witness.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Ms. Baldwin then.
Thank you. Walmart calls Mr. Steve Chris and asks that he be sworn.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chris. Can you hear us?
I can.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Baldwin.
Mr. Chris, could you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Steve W. Chris, C-H-R-I-S-S.
And what is your position?
I am Director, Energy Services for Walmart, Inc.
And Mr. Chris, did you file direct testimony exhibits in this cost of service phase of this docket on September 15th, 2020?
Yes.
Do you have any corrections to your testimony?
No.
If I were to ask you the same questions contained within your testimony today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
I would like to move at this time to have Mr. Chris's pre-filed direct testimony and associated exhibits admitted to the record.
Thank you. If anyone objects to that motion, please state your objection. I'm not seeing or hearing any, so the motion is granted.
Thank you. Mr. Chris, do you have a summary of your testimony that you are ready to present?
I do. Good morning, Chairman LeVar and Commissioners. My name is Steve Chris, and I'm Director, Energy Services for Walmart, Inc. Walmart makes the following recommendations for the cost of service phase of this docket. First, Walmart does not take a position on the company's proposed cost of service study model at this time. However, to the extent that alternative cost of service methodologies or modifications to the company's methodology are proposed by other parties, Walmart reserves the right to address any such changes in accordance with the Commission's procedures in this docket. Second, for the purposes of this docket, at the company's proposed revenue requirement, Walmart does not oppose the company's proposed revenue allocation methodology. Third, if the Commission determines that the appropriate level of revenue requirement is lower than that proposed by the company, the Commission should take larger steps to address the significant interclass subsidies in Rocky Mountain Power's rates. Specifically, Walmart recommends that the Commission should A, start with the revenue allocation proposed by the company at its proposed revenue requirement increase, B, allocate on a revenue basis 50% of the reduction in revenue requirement from the company's proposed revenue increase of $95.7 million to Schedule 6, 8, 23, and 15 traffic and other signal systems, Those schedules are currently paying a subsidy per the company's cost of service study results, subject to a limit such that no class becomes subsidized as a result. And finally, allocate the remaining 50% of the reduction on an equal percentage basis to all classes. Finally, our fourth recommendation is that Walmart supports the company's proposal to functionally unbundle rates. This concludes my summary.
Thank you. Mr. Chris is available for cross-examination.
Thank you. I'll go to Mr. Bain first. Do you have any questions for Mr. Chris?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Russell, do you have any questions for Mr. Chris?
Sorry, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Singh, do you have any questions for this witness?
I do not have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hayes, do you have any questions for Mr. Chris?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holman, do you have any questions for this witness?
No questions. Thanks.
Mr. Snarr?
No questions from the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jetter?
And no questions from the division. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wagner or Mr. Kumar?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Allen, do you have any questions for Mr. Chris?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Clark?
Also no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not have any either. So thank you for your testimony this morning, Mr. Chris.
Thank you.
Ms. Baldwin, anything further from Walmart?
No, that concludes Walmart's case.
Anything further from anyone? Well, with that, I'll just repeat that we intend to issue an errata notice with respect to legal briefing and closing arguments as we discussed this morning. And as Ms. Hayes requested, we'll clarify that neither are required. Both legal briefs and closing statements are being allowed but not required of any party, because I recognize we have a lot of parties in this docket. I think we will, though, allow closing arguments only from those who file legal briefs. And we'll clarify that point. If someone feels differently about that, please file something with us to that effect. Otherwise, we'll get that clarification out this week, and then we will start doing our part of this docket. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thanks.